When my father related to my sister some of the trials he had when he was growing up, one of which was that he needed to make rope out of sisal to sell and raise for his school fees. And that from 13 or 14 years old, he traveled long distances to go to school. And at one time, he attended Maseno School more than 400 kilometers from his home in Kalama. Imagine that, a 13 or 14-year-old child. And even though my grandfather was relatively rich, he had made it crystal clear to every one of his children that his wealth was for him alone, that his children should work hard and make their own money and make their own way in life. But after that, my father brought us up in relative luxury. We were picked and dropped off from school. We were well fed, well dressed, and I must add here, I didn't think so at the time. Well fed and well dressed are relative. And there's a whole world of difference between githeri that is made with fresh maize and githeri that is made with dry maize. Let me leave it at that. But all my father expected of us is that we study hard, we pass our exams, go to university, and be found by good jobs in the same way that he was found by his job, but in the public sector, even when he was still a student. What our dreams and aspirations were completely immaterial. Our obligation was just to work towards what he wanted and what he had set as goals. And he was entitled to that. He was entitled to it because it was based on his worldview and his background and his experience. However, it would be a mistake for founders of family businesses to imagine that their heirs necessarily share those worldviews, nor imagine that they are motivated by the same factors. And when we do this, as founders, we set ourselves up for disappointment, for disillusionment, and if we are not careful, for death by bitterness. I want to say that the large majority of family business founders, regardless of the path they took in the public or private sector, raised themselves up from abject poverty. Even when they were descended from entrepreneurs of means, it was generally expected from very early on that they would make their own way in life. So for that reason, those who acquired wealth, especially in the period after Kenya's independence, had known the deprivation and hunger firsthand. They had direct and stark memories of poverty, and they had an intimate knowledge of hunger. Their desire to escape scarcity was the main driving force for them to succeed and to acquire wealth. But unfortunately, now for those of us who were brought up by them, we grew up in relative affluence. I don't have a fear of hunger, and I know I've experienced difficulties and I've experienced need and relative poverty, but there was always a safety net that I could always gather up my things and go back home, as it were. Our fathers and our parents had no such options. And it's for that reason that they need to re-experience life from our perspective and our views, and that these estates that they're leaving behind need to be designed in such a way that they meet the aspirations of those to whom they're leaving them. When an estate does not take into account the aspirations of the heirs, it's unfortunate because then that estate has no meaning, especially when it is put in such a way as to perpetuate the founder's existence. And when that happens, and when heirs find no other way out, the next obvious thing that will happen is to be quickly disposed of or converted. For the more fortunate people, convert it into something that better fits your aspirations and your place in life. And by those who are irresponsible, that estate will be frittered away. So for us, especially us who are in the generation between, who are receiving an estate and at the same time having to craft estates for our own children, it is now time to get to know our children, to understand them intimately, to know what their competencies and aspirations are, and having known that, then craft estates that meet those needs and those aspirations.